From the Russ Center for Media in downtown Cape Girardeau, welcome to Focus on Southeast, a program on issues, events, and people impacting Southeast Missouri State University. I'm Dan Woods with KRCU Public Radio. On today's show, we'll be talking about SEMO's interior design program and travel to the Miller Reserve and learn about the work there to restore the site to a functioning wetland. SEMO's Bachelor of Arts, Fine Arts in Interior Design recently received accreditation from the Council for Interior Design Accreditation. And I'm joined now by Dr. Michelle Brune. She's the Interior Design Program Coordinator. She's going to tell us about the accreditation and much more. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So first, if you would, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So like you said, I'm the Program Coordinator for Interior Design. I'm a professor also at Southeast, and I have been at Southeast for 26 and a half years.
Wow.
I've been teaching for 20, so this is my 20th year teaching. Previously, I was a project manager and a building maintenance manager with facilities management. And prior to that, I actually worked in university advancement.
Wow, you've done a lot of things.
So I have, yes.
Well, cool. So tell us about the interior design program here at the university.
So we have, like you said, a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Interior Design here at the university, and the program consists of many classes, everything from history to drafting to upper level studios and lower level studios. We have about 68 students. Our program is growing, but it's definitely a mix of creative skills and technical skills that students have to learn.
So when you tell people that you teach interior design, what do you think pops in their mind when you tell them that, about what you do?
Okay, so almost immediately people think of residential design because there are many shows like HGTV and many design shows on television, and so most people think of interior design from a residential standpoint, which yes, that is part of what we do. But the part that people are not aware of is that we actually design public spaces. So everything from a restaurant to a movie theater to a hospital or doctor's office, basically any interior space, and we spend about 90% of our lives indoors, those spaces are touched by an interior designer.
And down to very minute details too. Talk about some of the things that you would look at and you would make to adjust, I guess, in a space about this should be here or this should move here. Talk about some of that.
Yeah, so we're always looking at, of course, when we think of interior design, we want the space to be aesthetically pleasing, but it also needs to be functional. So as designers, we would want to know what is going on in that space. So if it is a physician's office, there would be different functional characteristics and things happening. So understanding who works there and what things are needed. So that might be down to the details of making sure that fabrics are bleach cleanable if it's, say, in a healthcare environment. And also with commercial environments, we have to make sure that finishes are fire resistant and things like that. Also learning about building codes, and there's just a lot more that goes into it than just the aesthetics, which is what the general public sees, which is great, but there's a lot of behind the scenes.
You even told me before we talked here, we visited on the phone, where the return air vent is, maybe where the fire hydrants hang in the room.
Yes.
I mean, that's all the sort of things you would look at.
Yes, absolutely, because what we do, everything has to coordinate together. So we have to make sure, if we are going to install a projector in the ceiling, that we have electrical for that projector in the ceiling, and then it doesn't, get in the way of a HVAC return vent or a light fixture or a sprinkler system or something like that. If we're going to hang something on the wall, quite often there are fire alarms and fire strobes and things like that that we need to make sure that everything that we do coordinates with all of those things.
And I guess this would be working really closely with architects when the building is being designed, right?
Absolutely. So many of our students work in architectural firms, in engineering firms. A lot of times those professions are maybe within the same company. So interior designers would work very closely with all of those professions to make sure that everything coordinates and that they have their job to do, and we have our job to do, and we just have to make sure that all of that coordinates.
Yeah. So let's talk about the accreditation. That was a recent, I think it was announced. Talk about that and what it means.
Okay. So the accreditation is very important to our students and our program. We initially received accreditation in 2017, and then we just received a reaccreditation. And so what happens is every 6 years, the site visitors from the organization actually come on campus and review student work, talk to us. We have to write a self-study, make sure that we are still meeting the academic standards that the accreditation has established. And one of the things that we always tell our students is, employers really want graduates from accredited programs because they know that the students have the knowledge that they need to enter the industry.
Yeah, and that accreditation is very important. And it's you told me there's a lot of paperwork involved, and midway through you do like a 3-year evaluation. There's a report evaluation in the middle. So it's very detailed.
Yes, it's very detailed, and yes, so what happens, there's a 3-year report, typically just improving on some weaknesses that you might have through the process. And then, so it's a continuous improvement program. We get accredited, and then we work on things that we need to work on, write our report, and then get ready for the next one. So,
talk a little bit about eco-friendly designs and sustainability and how that figures into the work that you do.
So absolutely, we look at sustainability, we look at environmentally friendly products. One of the things that we do is try to have students select products that are going to last a long time, not products that last 2 years and then we throw them away because there's a lot of construction waste that happens. So we want to make sure that students select things that are durable, also have recycled content, and then there are programs such as LEED is one of the programs that you can actually have your building kind of environmentally friendly, like certified. So there are definitely things that we do to make sure that we're meeting those sustainability goals.
Talk about, I guess, designing a space, and each space is going to have its different needs. So, a kitchen space versus a healthcare office or whatever. Talk about paint colors, and sometimes just knowing the space is going to be used for X mean bright colors, more muted colors. Talk about how that all factors together.
Absolutely. So students will do research when they are designing any project. They will have to do research, and part of that is understanding the psychological aspects of color and how it impacts people. Like I said, we spend 90% of our time indoors, so we want those spaces to be comforting and healing and not necessarily introducing a color that is not appropriate for the space. So, for example, blue is a calming color, and that will calm people, and we know that from research. Now, if it's a children's space and we want them to be excited and happy, maybe we would use primary colors where those might be more exciting and invigorating for the space. So it's definitely not just we like blue, so we are going to paint the wall blue. Yes, sometimes, yes, that is the case. But as a designer, we have to kind of have a justification for why we do what we do. So there's a lot of research that goes into it. We don't just say, I like this, I like that, that looks good. There's usually definitely some behind the scenes stuff that goes on.
Yeah. Is it challenging keeping up with the new, I'm sure there's new studies and new things coming out all the time. Is there a lot to keep up with in that area?
Absolutely. There are always new products, there are new research studies. It is constantly evolving. And so that's something that as a faculty member and, students, of course, we have to try to stay up to date on what the new products are because they're coming out constantly. And sometimes we might want to use a product that is discontinued. and maybe it was only on the market for 6 months and it's discontinued. So that is it is a constant thing where you have to keep up with what is actually current.
So whenever you're out and about and you're going to a space, just on your leisure time, do you walk into the space and go, oh, that probably shouldn't be there? I mean,
absolutely.
Right?
I cannot help myself. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm constantly analyzing every environment that I go into. And actually, I took students on a tour yesterday, and we did just that. We walked through the river campus and just observed and looked at everything around us. And I want them to do that kind of thing. I always laugh because they're going to notice the fire strobes and the HVAC returns and where something might not look like it's supposed to be, but that is what they are learning to do, and I think it's an important skill for them to have, as to be able to go into a space and analyze it.
Yeah. What's the most challenging part of your work?
I think there's just so much to learn and so much to keep up with. But it's also just very exciting, and it's ever changing. We are always looking at different spaces. I think as a designer, the fun thing for me was always to, I would work on a project and then that one would be completed, and then I would work on another project and it might be a little different. And so I think it's just always changing, and I think that's what keeps the field kind of exciting, because you're not always designing the same thing all the time. And many architectural and interior design firms, they might work on residences, and then they might also work on K through 12 schools, and it changes all the time. And so I think that's what keeps it an exciting field. And there are many jobs right now in the field, so it's definitely something that would be great to go into.
Well, cool. Well, Michelle, thanks very much for spending time with us today.
All right, thank you for having me.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Dr. Bill Eddleman. We'll learn more about the Miller Reserve. You're watching Focus on Southeast, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Focus on Southeast. The Miller Reserve is a 27-acre plot located south of Scott City, Missouri. There's been an ongoing cooperative effort from the Natural Resources Conservation Service, the Missouri Department of Conservation, and Southeast faculty and staff to restore the site into a functioning wetland. Dr. Bill Eddleman is here now, and he's the chair of the Miller Reserve Steering Committee. He's here to tell us all about the Miller Reserve. Hey, Bill.
Hi.
Always good to see you. So tell us about the reserve and how this all got started.
Well, we have two alumni of Southeast, Addison Lawrence and John Lawrence, who came to their mother had already endowed a scholarship in memory of their father. And they came to the university along with their mother at the time with a proposal to donate some land in Scott County that had been in their mother's family and she had inherited from her parents, and use it as a outdoor laboratory and research site for biology students and others.
Give us an idea of where this is in near Scott City. Kind of where's that at? It's
actually very close to Commerce.
Okay.
It's just southwest of Commerce. And it's actually in an area We know a lot about the history of that area because John James Audubon, the famous pioneer artist and ornithologist, had spent part of a winter there, and it was apparently a vast cane brake with massive trees in between the cane and a big bottomland hardwood forest originally. And it had been cleared over time as swampland and converted to agriculture. And then in the 1920s, Mrs. Miller's parents purchased the property and he farmed it. His name was Henry David, and his wife was Laura Ann Cook Miller.
Okay. So it was basically a swamp at one point, and then it got drained, I'm guessing, which a lot of southeast Missouri did, and became agriculture. So what sparked them to want to turn it back to the way it used to be?
Well, the Lawrence brothers are, as I said, are alumni of Southeast, and they had both gotten training in biology while they were here, as well as education. Of course, at that time, it was a teacher's college when they graduated. And so they also had been very generous to the education college as well as the college of the science college. And so both of them had become world famous in their subdisciplines. John is a internationally known echinoderm specialist, that is sea stars, sea urchins and related organisms. And Addison was an aquaculturist who had done a lot of work on shrimp aquaculture. And so they wanted to give back to the institution, as well as they were very interested in education.
We've got some pictures, and there's a digital archive for the Miller Reserve, and there are some pictures from that we're going to put up on the screen and just kind of have you tell us a little bit about it. This is
that's a schematic of the plans for the area. We didn't know how we were going to approach this because it takes a lot of money, of course, if you're going to manage a piece of property. And so what we came up with was it had been wetland at one time, and there is a wetland reserve program. So we approached the Natural Resource Conservation Service and the Conservation Department about enrolling this property in wetland reserve. And it's a little bit small. We had to get a variance for the time in ownership once it was donated in 2008 to the foundation, and also for the size in order to enroll it in wetland reserve. So we know through much of the boot heel what the appropriate vegetation should be because Corps of Engineers maps back in the turn of the last century had been developed with soil types. And so we know where the river used to flow, we know where all the meanders were, the different wetland types. And so we restored it, and the money for restoring it comes from the Wetland Reserve Program. They're allotted so much per region per year to develop new projects. And it's in a permanent easement to be a wetland. So we developed 3 wetland areas that were sloughs or meander scars, and those are all outfitted with water control structures. And so we can adjust the water level, limited by rainfall. If it doesn't rain, we don't have water. A lot of places have wells, but we don't. And so what you're seeing is the plan. So if we move on to the next one, there's an aerial photo of what it looks like from the air today, roughly. Of course, the goal is to restore it to bottomland hardwood forest. And so part of the money that comes with the Wetland Reserve Program is for purchasing trees to plant. So we planted trees. We also have had a go-around of replanting some of the trees and bringing in some of the rarer species that aren't part of the normal mix. And some of those trees are doing quite well. Others are, will come along eventually. But we had to do that because most trees, the seed source was so far away, it would have never gotten there, especially the oaks. So, and a lot of the things, we have planted some real specialized wetland vegetation as well that would have never gotten there on its own. But the amazing thing to me is once it was restored, within a couple of years, we were actually picking up some pretty unique wetland species. So things like rice rats, which they had to have come up the ditch system
Yeah.
to get to the reserve. Sirens, lesser sirens popped up, which are a type of aquatic salamander. And we're just constantly being surprised by what we find there.
So is this one of those projects that, will it ever be complete, or is it just going to, it's going to continue on for a long time?
Part of the
right?
reason we were able to justify it, it's actually was developed not the normal goal for a wetland reserve program. This one is actually an educational and monitoring goal. And
Okay.
so no one had ever followed one of these from day one, starting with bare ground and just monitoring it through time. And so the biology department has been connected into that.
And students get to work on this project, right?
Students get to work on the project. There is one graduate assistantship that's connected with the Miller Reserve, who the student does some of the maintenance activities there. There's a trail that stays mowed, and there's a building that houses equipment out there, and also there's, as with anywhere nowadays, there's an invasive plant problem, especially Bradford pear. So the student has to keep on top of that, controlling things like black willows. So we've had other students go out and do just individual projects, undergraduate and graduate students. And so as through time, we look to have a lot of this going on.
And the family's still involved in this, right?
Very much so. The committee that oversees it, I was the chair of the biology department when we were approached about this possibility. And so I was the first chair of the committee, and the family actually asked me to stay on after I retired as chair of the committee. There are two funds also that the family created for research money, as well as another fund for maintenance activities, which includes partly money that was donated by the family, partly money that before the project started, it was leased out for, I think, 3 growing seasons to a farmer, and the rent for that went into the maintenance fund. And then also some of the money from Natural Resource Conservation Service went into that for maintenance.
And so we mentioned these other organizations. They help with this, I guess, too, and provide.
Yes, the committee consists of family representatives, university representatives, foundation representatives, NRCS rep, Conservation Department rep, archivist, and this is another unique thing. We established from day one a digital archive to document this thing. It's in Special Collections and Archives in Kent Library. And the photos you're seeing are from that archive.
And that's an important thing to keep, right? That record's going to be valuable.
Right, because that's part of the reason we're doing it, is to document changes over time.
Has there been anything so far that has surprised you with the project? Have you thought, wow, I didn't expect that, or that's something I didn't think was going to happen?
Well, some of the animals that have popped up, which I already mentioned, I didn't think we'd have the problem we've got with invasive species, but that's primarily because of Bradford pears planted in the neighborhood that then birds spread them.
Yeah.
I thought the trees would grow a little bit faster, but they're getting established and they're going now. So that was a little bit of a surprise. Just how many birds we've actually recorded over 120 species of birds on the plot.
So that's been a pretty amazing thing. I mean, and it's really early in relative terms, right? I mean, if it's 2008, it was donated, I guess, to the University Foundation. So it's been, what, 16 years, and there's already been a lot of things happen.
Yes, and some of the things came in like almost immediately. There were fish that came in, and how do fish get there? Well, back flooding to some extent.
Yeah.
Some fish will actually come in on wading birds. The eggs would be in mud on the wading birds' feet. And so we've got things like top minnows that come in. So it's one of the things that surprised me really early in the game is I went to check a water control structure, and water snakes found the area pretty fast. And one of the water snakes found me pretty fast too. I opened up the top on the water control structure, and the snake's like right there. I think we both surprised each other.
What is a project like this? It has to be invaluable as far as experiential learning for the students in biology, right?
Yes, and it's valuable in that, as I mentioned, no one has monitored one of these sites from day one other than just qualitatively. So we have some quantitative data on changes over time.
Do other universities or folks doing that would be interested in this type of work come to see the reserve, come to visit, look at the archives?
We've actually had NRCS, we have had soil scientists on a field trip come to look at it. We've had classes. The university, the biology classes oftentimes visit. Different classes, mammalogy, ornithology, wetland ecology, habitat management. And we're hoping eventually, we'd like for the things to get a little bit more established, and we'll start bringing secondary school groups in and primary school groups in.
And this is just an example, and we've got about a couple of minutes here, but you know, I know the region changed a lot when all of the agriculture really changed things, when everything was drained, but there were probably some things that were lost that we'll never get back after that, right? I mean, it changed things dramatically.
There are some things that were there that will never come back because they're extinct. One example, or maybe extinct, ivory-billed woodpecker is one example. There's another little bird that very few people in the general public know about, the Bachman's warbler, which is extinct, which used to be actually relatively common in the boot heel.
Yeah. Well, Bill, this has been interesting, and I guess folks, if they're interested, they can see the archive against at Kent Library, right, for folks that would be interested.
Right. They can also view a lot of it online. Since it's digital, it goes online. So there's images, there's documents, and various other things in the archive online.
Okay. Well, thanks for telling us about the Miller Reserve. We appreciate it.
All right. Welcome.
Focus on Southeast is a collaboration of KRCU Public Radio and the Department of Mass Media here at Southeast Missouri State University. Just a reminder that portions of these conversations will be broadcast on KRCU Public Radio. They'll also be on our website, krcu.org, and also available on the station's YouTube channel. From the Russ Center for Media, I'm Dan Woods. Thanks for watching. Be sure to join us next time when we focus on Southeast.
We can keep up with the photos because
I know.